Hello, thank you for joining me. So this is our third video in our series using solid body parts and assembly design. What we're going to go over is a little bit more hands-on design here in regard to our crane model. So let's look at our PowerPoint real quick and take a look at some of the bullet points in this. First of all, we want to start with the right sketch. If you look at this model, we've already created this sketch, but the right sketch is the primary design sketch in this model. And it's one of those one sketches to rule them all. So all the features associated with this model are going to be referenced off of this primary sketch. The front sketch is a secondary sketch, and it's driven by the right sketch. So let's take a look at that a little bit more closely. So as we get down to Feature Manager Design Tree, let's take a rollback bar, which is sometimes really hard to select. And we'll start with the top plane 2 and top plane bottom. What we have here are two different planes that I associated with the building of the base. I made a loft out of the base, but I really didn't use these features until the very end of the model. So these things could probably be reorganized. We have our top plane 2 sketch, our top plane sketch, which is up at the very top, which is the circular feature, and it's in the interface between the top of the crane and the base of the crane. Now we have our top-bottom sketch, which defines the very bottom of our model and the base of our crane. But the first sketch that really drives this model is the right sketch. So it starts in the top plane up here and draws the appropriate geometry, sketch geometry. It's going to define all the parts that come thereafter. So what we have over here is a vertical support, a horizontal support in this area, and we have all of our booms over here. So we have boom 1, 2, and 3, and then we have our base. So kind of a simple model. And it's a fairly easy model to follow. From the right sketch, we have our front sketch. So in the front plane, that's all we have is a sketch. And if you look at the sketch a little bit closer, all it does is it has components in this sketch that help define some of the elements that are associated with it. So all of our booms, the width of our booms are over here. So the width of our boom 1 is 5 inches, and then boom 2 is 8 inches, and then boom 3, 8 inches. Boy, that doesn't sound right. Let's go ahead and make this one 12. You do have the capability and the opportunity to change a lot of these elements, and I'll show you this when we get our completed model. When we go into our design, into our basic sketches here, we can change a lot of these elements, and everything should fall into place. There's no hunting and pecking amongst all the different sketches and the features that you have. You can change a lot of the generalized geometry associated with your model you're trying to put together simply in these few design sketches on top of the Feature Manager Design Tree that you see here. So also we have other elements over here too that the front sketch defines, a horizontal support and a vertical support in regard to the width. So a lot of these widths are interrelated. I'm going to use 3/4 of an inch steel, which might be a little bit on the thick side for something like this. But I'm going to use 3/4 of an inch steel just to be consistent throughout my model. So I want to make sure there's at least a 1 inch difference between a lot of these interfaces in here. So, with that being said, that's our front sketch. Let's move down our Feature Manager Design Tree a little bit more. Top boom plane. What we have is a plane up here that defines the very top of our boom. So we're going to take a lot of our geometry that we're going to sketch in regard to the boom on that plane. And then we have our top boom sketch. If that's not showing, let's go ahead and show that. And you'll notice that the top boom sketch is nothing more than a bunch of concentric, in a way, nested with equal distant rectangles in here. But you also notice inside the sketch there's relationships with these center lines going off to these center lines, or these construction lines as they used to be called, from our front sketch. So we have a Pierce relationship over here. Let's go ahead and turn some of those on so you can see what they look like from each one of these sketches. So the width of between these two lines, which defines the outer edge of our boom 3 and boom 2, are all confined by these vertical construction lines coming off of this geometry off of our front sketch. A nice little geometry that's created there, so when I change these values down here, if I were to change out from maybe 11 to maybe 10, you notice that center line moves in a little bit, and when I rebuild this, the sketch also moves in too. So let's change that back, because I think 11 is probably a better number than 10, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so now we have hook and boom number 1 items. So now we have our all the items associated with our boom 1, which has also got the attachment for the hook in the bottom. We have our hook plate hole, a boom 1. We have a cut extrude down here, which kind of gives it a nice contour, and then ultimately we have a shell. All of that is confined to this folder. So let's bring back our PowerPoint just to make sure we're covering all the bullets in here. So we have our right sketch and our front sketch is already defined, and all the elements of the right sketch and the front sketch are going to try to define the rest of the model. So we did our boom 1 using the top boom plane, and we added that to that new folder down there. And our second item, which we're going to cover here in just a moment, is we're going to create two new configurations, the complete model and boom 1. So now we have a hook and boom 1 items already created. What we want to do is go to our feature manager tree, and we're going to create these configurations. Both configurations are going to be the same. It's going to include all the elements that we've created so far. And now that we have everything confined into this folder in here, that folder is really easy to suppress and unsuppress in each of these configurations. So this configuration, the complete model configuration, is going to have all the different configurations that we're going to create for this model. It's going to be complete, whereas all the other different configurations, like the boom 1, the boom 2, and the boom 3 configurations, are only going to have those elements for those different elements that it's describing. Okay, now that we have the boom 1 items, let's go to boom 2. So boom 2 is created, but what we don't have is configuration for boom 2. So let's go ahead and go to our PowerPoint just to make sure we're defining this a little bit better and following our little bulleted items that we're following. So we want to create a third configuration named boom 2. We're going to suppress all other features in the boom 1 folder model while boom 2 is active, or while the boom 2 configuration is active. And then we're going to model boom 2, add boom 2 features to this new folder. We're going to select the complete model configuration and suppress the boom 2 folder. And then what we should see is a completed model configuration with boom 1 and 2. And then the two separate configurations, boom 1, which just has boom 1 items, and then the configuration for boom 2, which would just have the boom 2 items. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we want to do is come up here. We want to create that the new configuration. We're going to call that boom 2. And then the green check mark. And what we want to do is we want to go back over here and we want to take the boom 1 items and we want to suppress that. The boom 2 items we want to have unsuppressed. So if those were suppressed before, or if you hadn't created them, or if you already created them, you want to make sure you're unsuppressed them. But what you do is you go through the boom 2 items, which is just the boom 2 and the shell, and you want to put them into that folder, and you want to suppress and unsuppress that folder depending on what configuration you're selecting. So once we've done that, what we have is boom 1. Should be its own configuration. Boom 2, its own configuration. And then the complete model should have both of them. And that sort of format we're going to follow throughout this. As we continue to build our model, the complete model will have everything we've made, and all the other configurations will be specific to those configurations, to those elements within that configuration as it's named. It'll just have those elements in there. So, we're going to save the rest of this modeling for the next film, so please join me there.